Hello and happy, beautiful day to you. Welcome to today's quick IQ episode where we talk about insights and questions. And today we have a really great question from a listener regarding the last podcast episode. So I love her question, and it was this, is that on the last podcast episode where I worked with a beautiful volunteer, Mila, as I began working with her, she was talking about the problem that was coming up. So we were talking about that, and as she was talking about it, her pain increased. And of course, I see that all the time. That's something that I've documented many times, even in the medical journals where I've worked with people. That's something that I've seen over and over again. And her question, though, our listener's question was, why does that happen with some emotions, but not with other emotions? So I thought that was a really great question, and I wanted to share that to provide you with a deeper understanding because, again, I see that happen all of the time, but it's a little tricky. And that's the reason, by the way, that even when I work with volunteers on the podcast and I show them how to release their own pain, you notice that a lot of times I might interrupt somebody because I know that they're ingraining the problem or they're going to increase the problem, and so I interrupt them so that they're not going more into the negative. Now, the reason that it can happen with some emotions but not other is because the different emotions affect us in a different way. And a simple way to think about this is like this. And kind of to provide a foundation for a moment. So first and foremost, if we go to the basics, when I was working on healing myself, I could see that stress affects the physical body. I mean, it's well known. People even can die of a broken heart, or even be so scared they could be scared to death. Their heart stops. Or on a simple note, somebody's embarrassed, their face turns red. So we can see that emotions affect the physical body. We know that, and they can affect the body to the point of death. And we know that. But we can also see that as I was, on my journey looking on healing myself, I could look at it objectively and say, well, wait a second. There are people who even have PTSD who are not sick. How does that work? And that's when I began to figure out that the combination of emotions was key, that there are a specific combination that can be linked to illness. And so that's why one person can be stressed out and have all kinds of stress but not be sick, but somebody else can have negative emotions, but then they have that illness that's linked up. And so that was the key. And by understanding that, that's how I saw it was possible for somebody with multiple personality disorder to have different illnesses and different personalities. People with multiple personality disorder, one personality might have one pain or illness, and another personality may have a completely different pain or illness, or another personality could have no illness at all. And again, the combination is key. And so the analogy that I use all of the time is, just to simplify it, is that, if somebody wants to make cake and they have flour, they can't make cake. But if they have flour and they have eggs and butter, or vegan eggs and butter, and mix it with other ingredients, now they can make a cake. And if they have different ingredients, they have a different recipe, and different ingredients, a different recipe. And so we can see different combinations when cooking, but also different combinations of emotions. But there's specific emotions. And so if we unpack this even more, this combination can consist of a variety of different things. One part of the mind may have something that I call the symptom emotion. And the symptom emotion is the emotion that's connected to the symptom. And to simplify that, if somebody's embarrassed, their face turns red. So embarrassed, face turns red, panic attack, racing heart, shortness of breath, anxiety. So we can see different emotions link up. Or on a positive note, sexual thought creates a sexual physical response. And so we can see that specific emotions affect the body in a specific way. If somebody's feeling disgusted, they might feel like they want to vomit. Completely different physical response. And of course, every ailment, whether it's autoimmune condition or all kinds of things, tumors, pain, neck pain, back pain, it all has its own emotional combination, if you will. So if somebody increases a feeling of anxiety, that can increase panic attack. Or if they increase embarrassment, it can increase red face. And so some of these emotions, if we increase, it can affect us. You can see the difference, right? So that's part of the ingredients, is if you increase some of the emotions, that could increase. But there are other emotions that are more constant, if you will. And an example of that is this, is that in this recipe, one thing that can happen is a person may have their identity might be somebody who's sick or disabled. So it might get into their self-image that they're somebody who's sick, in which case what can happen is they can have one illness after another, after another, after another, because maybe they see themselves as being sick or see themselves as a victim. And so that pattern can repeat. Now, if somebody increases the victim feeling, that doesn't always necessarily increase a pain or illness, like the same as if somebody was increasing anxiety, if you will. So, or if somebody increases the self-image energy, like this is who I am, it doesn't necessarily increase the pain. It could just further ingrain the pattern, if that makes sense. So basically, simply said, that some of the emotions, if you increase them, just further ingrain the pattern, but they don't necessarily increase the pain, whereas the symptom emotion can increase the pain. So that's why in some cases a person could talk about some emotions that are affecting them. Like a person could talk about victim and or they could talk about, oh, I'm always sick and I'm always sick and I'm always sick. And that may not increase the pain, but it can further ingrain that into their self-image. So it may not create the increase, but it can create the ingraining it so it's just more locked in, if you will, and continue to ingrain and reinforce that neural pathway and that belief. Whereas if somebody takes an emotion like embarrassment or anxiety, or maybe if anger is connected to their issue or whatever it is, and if they increase that, then it can increase their pain. So to answer the question that came in today, that's the reason that some emotions that are linked to the illness can increase the pain or increase the problem, and others can just re-ingrain it, if you will. Now, of course, I always want to give you a simple to-do, a takeaway that you can implement in your life. And of course, it's this, is that, if you think back to the last podcast episode where a volunteer was talking about the problem and it increased, and that's what you'll hear me say over and over on all of the podcasts, that I interrupt people for that very reason. I say, I don't want to further ingrain it. I don't want to increase the problem. And so I want to invite you to notice in your life, if you are going into the negative or talking about it or venting about it, and if you notice yourself doing that, I want to invite you to see if you can at least just start changing the conversation, or not doing it, or decreasing it, or doing anything that could create that improvement. Now, of course, for full healing and transformation, you would want to rewire this at a deeper level in your subconscious mind so it was eradicated completely. But so that's what you'd want to do, but just want to ask you or invite you to at least see if you can start changing it a bit, not going into the negative, and really transforming it to where you genuinely feel positive. And it's not just saying it, it's actually rewiring your subconscious mind is really what you want to do. But taking that in wherever you are and being willing to start embracing the change. All right. So that said, that's today's quick IQ episode. And I want to ask you to please do make a point to hit the share button on this episode. Share it with somebody you love, somebody you care about, or somebody you don't even know, because the more that every single person in our world is happy and healthy and loved and loving, the better this world is for all of us. And so please do hit the share button, and please do make a point to have a most wonderful, happy, healthy, loving rest of your day. And I look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. We'll see you there. Thank you for listening to Heal Yourself, Change Your Life. all of the time people reach out and say how much these episodes have given them hope or touched their heart or helped them stay positive in hard times or even woken them up to a completely new level of awareness of how amazing we all really are. If today's episode touched your heart or expanded your mind in any way, please do me a favor and be sure to share it with those you care about or those you know who really need it. As more and more people become empowered, it really will change our world for the better. That is the point and the power of these demonstrations, is to create a radical shift in our world consciousness by showing everyone what we are all capable of. And of course, each volunteer will really need to follow through to reinforce their programming to maintain their results. But the point is for you to see that you really can create rapid results in your health and your life if you really understand how to use your mind. You're incredible. And I do want to be clear, though, that most people will not get results this fast on their own. I make it look very easy because of the discoveries that I made. You'll want to remember that there's so much more going on in our minds at a deeper level than people realize. That said, if you want to send me any questions or comments, come visit me on my website at BrandyGillmore.com/podcast. And if you're currently experiencing physical pain and would like to be a volunteer on the show, you can sign up there as well. Lastly, please remember, if you do have any health issues, you won't want to avoid your doctors. Instead, you'll want to continue seeing them and make it your goal to blow their minds with what you're capable of with your mind. Thank you.